You're tuned in to the It's Real podcast with your hosts, Kayla, Kallander, and Andrew Yaggie. Each week, we'll talk about what happens behind the scenes working full-time in real estate and share with you real-life stories, our successes and failures as we work to help consumers and industry professionals reach their real estate and real-life goals. Here we go.
It's episode 98 of the It's Real podcast. I'm Kayla Kallander, and I'm a mortgage lender.
I'm Andrew Yaggie. I'm a real estate agent.
Hey, Andrew. What do you know today?
Kayla, it's cold outside.
Man, they say that, it's such small talk when you talk about the weather. And I'm like, no, I like to talk about this because my, oh my, what do you do when it's this cold? I avoid going to anything and everything I can. I even missed the boat show last weekend. I know, rare to think that. It's just so cold, man. But
yeah, it is.
What do you do?
I still mostly run around just in kind of a pullover or sweatshirt or something. I rarely still put a coat on. But yeah, it is a little challenging, but the weather is going to warm up.
I know, I've seen that. You want to know what my husband got me for Christmas that I'm just like, he just gets me, was a heated vest, like the ones that you push.
One of the Milwaukee ones? That, put a battery in it and...
Yes, it has a charger. That is the best thing. And really? I don't know why I didn't wear high socks more in my life, but high socks and a heated vest, I really sound like a true North Dakotan. I really do.
Mm-hmm. Or North Dakotan that's getting soft, that needs those added creature comforts that you were able to get by with in the prior 30-some years of life.
Yeah, I remember being downtown on New Year's Eve at the OB when I was 21, and you're like, don't wear a jacket. I'm like, well, how did we do that? Was our skin thicker? I don't understand.
Your blood was a little thinner after it was the first of the month, and beers were a penny, and shots were a penny as well.
Yeah, memories.
Nice indeed. It's just crazy how you talk about Fargo, and I was just talking about college the other day with someone, and just the college experience, how great the experience is. The relationships, the networking, the academic part.
Meh.
For the most part, not great. And I think and actually I was talking to one of the individuals I was doing, I snuck down to Miami to do some flight training this last weekend, and we were talking about it because the guy, my simulator partner, was a flight instructor at a university, and we just kind of talked about how the collegiate experience is not always great because so many of the professors really, they've got the textbook knowledge, but they don't have the practical knowledge. Whereas he was sharing his experience at his aviation school, how so many of the instructors were retired, one TWA retired pilot, a guy that was high up in the Air Force, someone who worked for, Lockheed Martin, a defense contractor. And so these guys who had actual practical experience, and how much better the experience was because of that.
I would totally second that. I don't know if you ever took sports marketing at NDSU, probably not, but they had, I think his name was Pete Simonson Lumber.
I did not.
It was the one class that I was like, I want my focus to be marketing. He gave real life examples, and just, it wasn't what are the definitions and what are the case studies. He was, boots on the ground. So I 100% agree that just allows people to decide more, is this for me? Real life stories. So that's cool.
You know whose class I did the worst in, Kayla?
Wait, John Bitson, Business 310.
That was pretty close. I think I finished his class maybe with, did I get a C? Maybe. I don't know. I may have gotten a D in it because I just didn't really care. But yeah, he was tough and just, not relatable. Paul Brown.
What?
I did not do well in Paul Brown's class because it was so boring and just not practical. I did really well. Did you ever have Dr. Joe Smirkovsky?
No.
I had him. He was actually pretty good. He was a little dry, but actually it was engaging. So
the engaging ones.
But where I do best, Kayla?
Where do you do best, Andy?
I do best in aviation related things. So I do best in the oops, I guess I don't have the right thing added, in the aviation classroom. So this is me and my sim partner, Keegan in an Airbus 330 full motion, the actual simulator they used to train airline pilots over the weekend as we're kind of both working towards our airline transport pilot certificate. He wants to get to an airline. I have no aspiration of getting to an airline, but just really, really super fun to be able to go fly and to kind of have those experiences.
That is so cool. And even this video is wild.
Yeah, I'll show you a little bit of our sim. And those that aren't app geeks maybe won't appreciate it quite as much, but just a really, really cool experience, Kayla. So, and the weather was nice. Miami was about the only place the weather was nice this past weekend.
Yeah, I saw that. So you were in Miami, you were in Forest Falls, and you were anywhere else?
I may have been out to the East Coast this week as well too. Been out to New York and Nantucket and back. So yeah, well traveled this week, and also and a lot going on in real estate too. So.
Yeah, you've got a busy week of closings. How does real estate look these days?
Yeah, I think real estate, things are kind of, as we get through January, I think more and more people are having conversations. I've had 2 meetings today already with individuals that are looking to sell. I've got another individual coming in this afternoon, and then we've got, 4 clients that or 4 properties that we're closing on tomorrow. So, kind of our jump in December that we saw in our office, things are closing out here now, and we're putting properties on the market, but I think things are kind of picking up. How about for you, Kayla?
Yeah, when I should just look right now. I've been really busy with conversations. So year to date, so it's January 29th. I've had 79 conversations with people, which is quite a bit. I mean, and that's people, maybe they haven't applied and maybe they're not looking. Maybe a couple are refinances. And so there's a lot of conversation. But as we talked about before, there's a lot of people that are like, I'm done with this. 2026 is going to be the year I buy a house. I just got done pre-qualifying a girl for the, I think, 4th time. And she still has never bought. And I'm like, and she's in the perfect position, great credit, money down. She can afford double what she wants to buy, but she just hasn't. And she's like, I'm just done being picky. I know now that I'm not going to find my forever home as a 26-year-old buyer. And I'm like, and that's okay. And I think people are just kind of grasping that, and the energy is definitely in the air.
Mm-hmm. No, that's good. I agree that it is too. I think, again, people are more coming to terms with the fact that, hey, rates are sitting probably where they're at. But also I do see a lot of individuals that still are not well educated. Like I had an individual who came in to visit with me, the other day, and still had some questions, still was uncertain, still had talked about the fact, well, I'm going to wait to see, how much rates drop. And I just said, I visit with your lender a little bit more. I don't think you're going to see rates drop. There's going to be a little bit of up and down, but, from what we're seeing for the next 2 years, rates are going to be pretty well level. And I really also enjoyed, Kayla, what you had put online, especially, I've got too many things here. There we go. About seeing how so many young home buyers are getting ahead of the purchase game.
Yeah.
And so that gives me a little bit of hope too, Kayla, seeing that, hey, there are some people that are out there that are working on getting educated. But still plenty of people that are probably putting the cart before the horse as well.
There's a lot of young buyers right now, and they see the ability and they have a conversation. Sometimes it's just a conversation that takes someone from, oh, I won't buy for a couple of years to they're in contract in 30 days. And I'm seeing a lot of young Gen Z age clients that are learning from AI and ChatGPT and social media. Now, we have to be careful because there's a lot of wrong information out there too. But it's almost like sometimes there's that comparison game with social media. I think a lot of these young buyers are seeing their friends buy a house and they're like, I can do that too. So I've actually had a lot of conversations where I ask a client, what's your motivation to buy? And it's bigger backyard, or I'm done paying someone else's mortgage. But every now and then you'll hear, all my friends are buying, I need to just be an adult. So I'm seeing a lot of young buyers just taking that leap and starting to create wealth, because the average age of the first-time home buyer is 40, and they're helping with those odds. So or those averages, I should say.
I'm glad you bring that up, Kayla. I was headed to the gym this morning, so I got up and I did kind of my morning ritual. I walked on the treadmill and worked for a while, and then went to the gym and lift. And I'm the type, I've got to the point where I don't need to listen to music. In fact,
Yeah.
I kind of like to listen to something motivating and something that's going to help, drive my day a little bit. Have you ever listened to or watched the Diary of a CEO?
Yes.
Yeah, so you know who Stephen Bartlett is, who lives in London, who basically he's on YouTube, and I mean he's got millions of followers, and basically gets CEOs to come over and interview them for a couple of hours and give a lot of really practical advice. Well, it jumped out at me today as I was kind of like, oh, what do I learn about today, or what am I in the mood for? And I was kind of indifferent, and then this popped up, and so he was visiting with David Bach, who's the author of the book Automatic Millionaire, and it talked about buying a home, and especially for individuals who are younger. So Kayla, I want to share just a little bit of this.
Life on autopilot in less than 10 minutes.
Yep.
If you don't get in the game of homeownership and you rent in your 20s and you rent in your 30s, you're going to turn around in your 40s and having not built any net worth. And in fact, homeowners in America are worth 40 times more than renters. And I'm talking about ordinary Americans.
But that doesn't mean that buying a home made you rich, right?
It actually does. And I'm going to go through that.
But am I not better off renting, investing in the stock market?
I want to bust this myth because I have spent the last 33 years of my life helping millions of people with ordinary incomes become financially free, including 9 years as a financial advisor at Morgan Stanley. And I got to see firsthand how.
So that's just a little bit of the beginning, Kayla, but just talking about the fact that buying a home does create wealth. What's your takeaway from that?
Oh, gosh, I have so many stories and examples of people that got into a home and it wasn't necessarily, they don't think about the forced savings. They don't think about this invisible savings that's happening. And it's really cool to see people. I just talked to clients last night and they bought 3 years ago. They bought together, they're going to sell and they're going to go each on their own. It's their cousins. And what they had created in just equity alone was more than enough for each of them to have a minimum down payment on something bigger and better. And I 1000% think that, when we think about people that have wealth, we look at what are their assets worth as well. And what else, and I say it all the time, what else can you buy that maybe watches, maybe fine art that appreciates like a home? And then when you go to sell or go to upgrade, I mean, you have that new nest egg to put into a new house. Or, for example, I'm taking clients right now and we're taking the equity out and we're paying off all this debt, and clients are selling their house saying, we're going to pay off all of our debt and just have our mortgage. I see it day in and day out. Clients, a lot of times though, Andy, they just think, well, my rent is this, my house payment's going to be this. They don't think about that forced savings and equity. So I see it all the time, how people take advantage of that situation and how they build wealth firsthand.
I think the forced equity piece is key because, one can make arguments about, various investments all day long and how, someone may be able to do better investing here, investing there. But the reality, and David points out kind of in this podcast, is that 7 in 10 households are living paycheck to paycheck. And then even going further, generally we talk about, most individuals don't save. If they don't have a retirement account at work, most people are not saving. The U.S. has a negative savings rate. And so David talks, a lot about the fact that, as you're working through the day, like your first 3 hours are for taxes. So you're working from, let's say 9 to noon. Those 3 hours are for the government because the government doesn't believe that you're going to have money left later to pay them later. So they're taking that money out of your payroll. The next 3 hours are for housing and necessities. And then, past that, it's whatever. And a lot of people spend and aren't putting anything away. And so getting back to the idea of forced equity, David kind of asserted that there are the two best ways for an individual to become a millionaire are number one, through home equity, number two, through the stock market. In the last 20 years, the stock market has gone up 600%. So if you put 100,000 in, you've got 600,000 today. Home equity, the average home, if you started at 100,000, it's gone up 400%. So your home's worth $400,000. So think about that. And that brings me back to Miami this past weekend. I had an Uber ride. I was going to church on Sunday, and I was talking to my Uber driver, who is from Cuba originally. He's been in the US for 30 years. And he was telling me the story of his family and how he had bought his home years and years ago, and how it was worth $380,000 when he bought it. And he sold it just recently for over $750,000, turned around, bought kind of his dream condo overlooking the beach in Fort Lauderdale, and has no debt and has some cash on top of it. So you talk about, kind of the American dream, and as far as forced, kind of growth, forced appreciation. I mean, look no further than home ownership.
100%. And I love that story too. It's like, when you go to pay it off and you're like, it's worth what? And you created this nest egg, and it's forced. And I see it all the time. I ask people, do you have retirement? Yeah, with my company. What do you have in savings? And what do you have? And a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck. And so to see the ability to own something of your own, like to make it your own, you're not paying someone else's mortgage. You are creating this invisible equity like we talk about. But it's so fun to see like that scenario with your Uber driver where they're like, holy cow, like, look what I can do when I go to sell. Like, that is exciting to me.
Yep.
I love that.
It's incredibly exciting. And so it's kind of interesting coming full circle from having that, to kind of, listen to this Diary of a CEO episode. And it really makes a lot of sense, Kayla, especially for the average individual, because most people are not sitting out there today paying themselves first. He talks a little bit about when David worked at Morgan Stanley and how he was just astounded. He just said, hey, I started out and I was making $15,000 a year. I said, I don't have any money, to set aside. I certainly don't have any money to buy a home. Well, then I was making 30,000. I still don't have enough money. Then I was making double that, and so on and so forth. And, it's one of those things that it's never going to get easier. He tells a great story too about his grandma growing up and how his grandma took him out to McDonald's and basically said, hey, you're coming out here right now. What are you? You're eating this burger. You're a consumer. But shortly thereafter had him buy some McDonald's stock and said, now you're an owner. So you're sitting in here, you're consuming, but everybody else is buying your product. You can be an owner. And so if only everybody could be, as disciplined as David or David's grandma, as far as investing and the like. But again, most people are not. So looking at, especially investing, but more specifically, home ownership is one of the things, that is going to create wealth for the average person more than just about anything else.
Well, and you look at all these individuals that, then have rental properties. I look back at the house that we first bought, and sometimes I kick myself. I'm like, gosh, if we would have kept that, we bought it for, I think it was, $123,000. We sold it for $195,000. And now I see what they're selling for at like $270,000. And I'm like, it's wild. And you think about what you can do with that. But I think most people live in this mindset of, I'm just looking at rent and I'm just looking at my mortgage payment. And that scares me. They forget about that savings, like I said. But, when you don't see it, it's like when your money comes out of your paycheck for, if you're W-2 and you put money towards your retirement, you don't even notice it. But I love the idea that you said, Andy, of pay yourself first. Pay yourself first. And a lot of people don't. So.
Well, I think in business or anything else, and we look at a lot of, different commercial transactions and deals too, where individuals are maybe selling a business, Kayla. And again, number one, there are a lot of people that they don't have much of a business. They're virtually for profit at the end of the day. But so I look at pieces like that. But then even, I look at real estate agents or mortgage lenders or just about anybody working, but especially those individuals that are working and earning a commission. Some of them pay themselves 3 or 4 times. Well, I pay myself when I list the house. I pay myself when we get an accepted offer. I pay myself at closing, whatever. So now I paid myself 3 times, and that just doesn't quite math out. But again, in our daily lives too, we really need to, become more disciplined and cut back. Be sure we're paying ourselves. Be sure we're setting ourselves up for success in the future.
And I think too, just taking an hour and going through, like, one of the things I do is I go through my credit card and I say, what are the things that are coming out every month? And I did this last month and I was like, ugh, I need to stop. Like, I didn't even know what some things were. You know how it is. Apple takes your money and you're like, which app is that? What am I doing? And, in our industry, we're always, finding, all the apps and the things and the AI, and we're paying for
Tell me about
so many things. And
Gotta
I'm
have
like,
that course.
yeah, gotta have
Gotta have
that,
that course.
gotta buy that thing. And I'm like, I need to cancel some of these, but you have to stop and think about it. And I think a lot of people just are on autopilot sometimes. And I remember, I don't know if I ever told you this story. I remember when I worked as a teller at the bank when I was younger. And I remember seeing the wealthiest people would overdraw their accounts all the time. I'm like, why are they always overdrawn? And it was because they were moving money and they were, not paying attention. They were like, I'll pay it. I don't care. Oops, I wrote a check for more. And it was funny to me that I was thinking, gosh, if they were as disciplined as, the average Joe, think about how much money they could save in just overdraft fees. And it was just
Or overdraft protection, Kayla. You should have sold them that service.
oh, I think I probably did, but a lot of them were like, I don't need that. It was like $25 a year. Who knows? But it pays for itself. But anyway, cross-selling, Andy. Yeah, it's just wild though. But I think a takeaway is it really, like, try to put money aside. I tell people all the time, I say, if you're not sure if you want to afford, $500 more a month, try just setting that aside in the meantime. See how you feel, see how things move. And then if you can do that, then that's proof in the pudding that you can afford a house if you can, just try setting it aside once a month. And a lot of people come back and they say, yeah, like, I can do this. It's just a little discipline.
Mm-hmm. Kayla, I want to just jump back for a second. You were talking about expenses, and I'm with you. We're frequently looking, even in the office and other things, and like, okay, what do we need? What don't we need? What did we sign up for as a trial and forgot to cancel it? And I would think the average person out there, is in the same boat. Kayla, on average, if you could save $27 a day, in expenses, whether it's a coffee or something else you didn't need, how much money would you have at the end of the year without using your calculator? $10,000. So that's all. So the point is that that's all it takes. A coffee here, eating out there, grabbing a snack at the gas station, $27 here and there. It doesn't seem like much, but that's $10,000 at the end of the year. So for those of you who are maybe sitting out there that are renting and thinking, man, I'm in such a tough financial spot, or I'm one of the 7 in 10 households that's living paycheck to paycheck. I can't be a homeowner because I need 10 grand for a down payment and I can't get there. Let me challenge you to save. If you really look at what you're spending, $27 is all it takes in 1 year. Isn't that crazy?
It is wild. And I think if you think about that, what would you do with that much money? What would you do with $10,000? And you think about people that don't have any money to put down towards a down payment on a house. I think people are of this all or nothing mentality. They're like, well, I don't have 20%. So, I'll never have that. They see stats, it takes like 9 years to save 20%, whatever it is. And it's like, you have no idea. Like, if I had a first-time buyer come to me right now, Andy, and they had $10,000, I would be so excited because you could do so much with that.
Right.
And you can get into a house for as little as $500 in North Dakota with down payment assistance programs. So that $27 a day, wild, right?
I like it. One other stat to throw at you too, Kayla. Do you know what the average net worth of someone in the U.S. who's a renter? Do you want to guess their average net worth?
Average net worth of somebody that rents. I'm going to say 10 grand.
You're right. 10 grand.
I am?
You are.
Wow.
$10,000 according to David Bach, and he covered that in the Automatic Millionaire. The average net worth of someone who's a homeowner?
300,000.
400,000.
Oh my gosh.
So look at that. Look at that stark difference. So, and Kayla, honestly, like I'm always a little bit torn, like and I certainly see his side. in his arguments. And I think on average, I think they're really, really great arguments, for the automatic investment piece. But I also wrestle a little bit because I really like Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and Robert Kiyosaki calls your home a what?
Oh, I don't remember.
A liability.
Does he? I don't remember that. Okay, so
Yeah.
he calls it a liability. Why does he call it a liability?
He calls it a liability because you're pumping money into it,
True.
between interest, between taxes, insurance, repairs, updates, and everything. So Robert Kiyosaki looks at it more of a liability from a balance sheet standpoint. And hey, if you were really, really disciplined like him and you had a great investment strategy, maybe there is some truth to that. But again, I think for the average person, I like David's, mindset better. And even again, the story that I just told you about my Cuban Uber driver, just look at that, look at his appreciation and reaching his goals, getting his dream property.
Well, and also it kind of depends on the house that you buy too. I mean, we bought a lake home and we've spent a lot of money on that, but we also purchased a newer home. And we didn't dump a ton of money into that because it was ready to go. But I think it just depends on the size and your dreams and your hopes and your goals. And at the end of the day, too, again, probably not the most financially sound piece of advice. Some people just want a place to call their own and a place that, they can raise a family and create memories. And sometimes it's emotional, too. So
for sure.
Preach.
Well, I like it. So, Kayla, if someone's curious about increasing their net worth dramatically from where they're at right now, homeownership could be a good option for them. What's a good next step?
Man, just have a conversation with a lender, one that's going to talk to you and educate you and empower you. I mean, I tell realtors all the time, I'm like, don't show homes first, because what happens is they're going to get confused and excited, and then it's too much at once. And I think that just you don't even have to apply. You don't have to get pre-qualified. Just talk to somebody. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's my goal. Here's my hopes, my dreams, my fears. Just talk to someone like me who's willing to sit down and have a discussion. And then the next step is let's review your scenario. And as I tell clients too, prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. I say it all the time. When you go to the doctor, you don't ask for a prescription without them, reviewing your whole blood work and x-rays and everything. Have someone really just look at it all and then have them curate options. And I think it's scary to hear apply and get pre-approved. Just have a conversation.
Yeah. And I would say the same thing along the lines of with a real estate agent as well. Of course, the lender piece is paramount even before visiting with an agent, but go out there and find an agent, and not only that's a good fit, but someone who's actually knowledgeable, and who actually does business. Like we talked and shared the National Association of Realtors statistics, 94% of agents sold 9 or fewer homes. I had an individual that, I'm acquainted with reaching out about, hey, I really want to get into real estate, but oh no, I'm not quitting my job. I just want to do it on the side. And I said, very tactfully, but you may want to look elsewhere, because this is a very, very serious profession. This is something where you're going to make or break potentially someone's net worth, as we talk about, this scenario and any number of other things. So go out there, find trusted advisors, find ones that are knowledgeable, that are truly looking out for your best interest, and ultimately, get out there and become savvy.
Well, and as I said to some friends about a year ago, they wanted to use somebody that was just it was their aunt, hadn't done a deal that year. And I asked this girl in her profession, and she's a nurse, and I go, would you ever go to a doctor who hypothetically saw one person a year? Like, you go and you get a surgery. Would you go to a doctor that just upped his license to do one surgery a year? And it's comparable to that. So find the right people, find the professionals, and just have conversations. That's all it is to start.
Right on. Well, Kayla, that puts a wrap on episode 98. I hope it was beneficial for those that are watching and listening. And Kayla, have a great rest of the week.
I will if you will.
See ya.
Bye.